us, with no further ado, Jeff Tech in his first ever speaking engagement. Now, you brought a slideshow presentation, so I'm sure it's going to mess the cameras up a bit, but we're going to darken it up a little bit here. So anybody doing the crosswords can help put it down.
History shows again and again how nature points out the folly of man. Hey, greetings everyone, and welcome to Hempology's 11th Annual Cannabis Convention. A very special thank you to Ted Smith for having my wife, Michelle Rainey, speak here last year, and for asking me to speak this year. Can I see a show of hands? How many of you were here last year? All right.
Yeah.
How many first-timers?
Woo!
Yeah. How many of you are here because you heard me on the radio? Here we go. Please cue the sideshow. Medicine Journal, 4 patients, 5 patients. Some say I have a penchant for writing, but I'll tell you fine people here a secret. I like writing a whole lot more than I like the sound of my own voice. And for this, I wholeheartedly apologize. Chicago, Illinois is where the sarcasm, the accent, and I all came from. Living in Canada since 2004 has been a glorious experience for me. And although I was just recently granted permanent residency status here in Canada, I just may never go back. Ah, America, I love the country, but I hate the politics. Love it or leave it was drilled into me, almost from birth. I left. Years of bartending and dealing with the public should have taught me to steer clear of politics, sex, or religion. But these subjects tend to be too taboo and touchy. Unfortunately, these subjects are necessary and fundamental. Hard fact, more people have been slaughtered in the name of religion than for any other reason. But I'm not here to preach. Do we have any fellow students from the School of Hard Knocks here? Yeah, nothing like doing things yourself if you want them done correctly. Last year, while here at the University of Victoria for Hempology's 10th anniversary, I met a few interesting people here. And they altered the course of my year so profoundly, I've decided to make them the subject of this speech. 2 of the nicest people I met right away were DJ Spliff and Chrissy Steele. These radical radio personalities host a wonderful show called Drop the Hammer, presented Monday nights on Chili Rock Radio, 101.7 FM Malasapina, Nanaimo, and on the World Weird Web at www.chili.ca. Exactly a year ago, they were recording sound bites for their unique show, which focuses on 2 of my favorite subjects, medicinal marijuana and heavy metal music. While they were recording and we met, before I knew it, I found myself a frequent guest on their show. Do we have 7 or 8 listeners now?
And growing.
Sometimes I pick a song and sometimes I pick the subject. Either way, we have entertained and enlightened many listeners on the merits of medical marijuana while being factual and funny at the same time. 2 of my other favorite subjects. While on the air, over the past year, I've germinated seeds, planted seeds, cut clones, transplanted, washed buckets, and videotaped myself while simultaneously explaining over and over how to grow ganja, clone cannabis, and harvest the herb. You know, teaching the benefits of my hard knock education while hopefully helping people to produce the medicine they need to survive seems to come natural for me. Whether for recreational or medicinal purposes, marijuana, cannabis, ganja, whatever you call it, is a much safer adulterant than just about anything I can think of. Recently on television, there was a program called The Nature of Things with David Suzuki. The episode entitled The Downside of High sensationalized the tie between schizophrenia and marijuana. Spotlighting 3 BC youth diagnosed with schizophrenia, Their conditions all worsened when they tried marijuana for the first time. Mental illness was pre-existing in their families, and marijuana simply exacerbated their situation. It didn't cause it. The show goes on to report that CBD, one of the main ingredients in cannabis, is ironically a perfect antipsychotic medication and could easily replace stronger drugs that are currently used to treat schizophrenia. But then they said that cannabis is 130% more potent now than in the 1970s, but can't explain why the incidence of schizophrenia is not exponentially higher in Canada's youth. One man interviewed explained that cannabis simply cannot produce both THC and CBD at the same time. But I beg to differ. While the three main psychoactive constituents of cannabis, THC, CBD, and CBN, may be represented in different ratios in different strains of pot, the program's claim that cannabis cannot produce both CBD and THC is simply an erroneous conclusion and wrong. Hey, I'm no scientist, but I'm sure most would agree. It's the infinite variability of the ratio of these three main brain chemicals that give the same strain of marijuana a slightly different effect without depending on any one of a number of variables. Variables like who grew the strain, what fertilizers were used, and in what ratios, what light was used, and where the light was in relationship to the plant. And finally, the same strain grown by the same person under the same regime will still produce a slightly different effect depending on when the plant was harvested in the budding cycle, before or after the perfect harvest window, and the effect of the final medicinal qualities of any given strain will be changed. It's a fact. What really hurts my soul is when all these experts lump all pot into one pile. Most won't even use the word strain because I think it upsets their sensibilities and blocks their ability to patent some perfect concoction. It doesn't exist. You can't patent a plant, and that is that. Yay! That's the way it should be. Laws against plants are laws against nature. I stole that from a fellow activist and one of my favorite speakers, Chris Bennett. He spoke here last year, and in his book, Sex, Drugs, Violence, and the Bible, I read a lot about Zoroaster, a wonderful philosopher who lived around 600 BC. It is to him that I attribute one of my favorite quotes. He who sows the ground with care and diligence acquires a greater stock of religious merit than he could gain by the repetition of 10,000 prayers. I stole that too, posted it right on my Facebook page. You know, there's no sense reinventing the wheel. If it works, it works. Marijuana works for me. I first smoked pot when I was in the 7th grade, 11 years old. True to folklore, nothing really happened the first time except my dinner that night tasted better than ever before. You know, one man's story is still just what the experts refer to as anecdotal evidence. But regardless of this, my story is about anxiety and arthritis, which has been with me my whole life. Marijuana relaxes my rheumatism and soothes my soul. Joints help joints. And much like that footprints in the sand prayer that is so popular with non-secular addiction programs, cannabis was the essence that was always there when I really needed it, and it still is. My theory is that if you do just about anything for a decade or more, you will become an expert. Hang gliding, politics, or shoveling shit can all go drastically wrong with one single misplaced step. You know, like growing pungent pot in a virtual war zone. Now, with New Jersey joining the fold, there are 14 states in America that have programs legalizing medicinal marijuana. That was a literal pipe dream a decade ago when I made